I'm Nathan Scott, and this is Breakdown, a series on game design.
The Dunning-Kruger effect is a pretty well-known pattern in psychology, where people are actually more confident when they're less skilled at something. People think they know a lot more than they actually do sometimes because they don't really understand the full magnitude of the topic yet. So in this chart, going from the bottom to the top is how confident people are, and going from left to right is how experienced people are. People have a tendency to be very overconfident in situations where they don't understand the complexity of it. I use Portal as an example way too often, but I think this clip from Portal 2 shows it pretty well.
Alright, paradox time. This sentence is false. Don't think about it.
True. I'll go true. Yeah, that was easy. I'll be honest, I might have heard that one before though, sort of cheating.
It's a paradox. There is no answer.
Wheatley doesn't know enough about paradoxes to realize that it doesn't really have an answer and just immediately goes with true. GLaDOS is trying not to think about it too hard so she doesn't shut down. Basically, Wheatley isn't smart enough to realize that he's not very smart, and he oversimplifies it in his mind. Scientific articles have been written about that paradox, and Wheatley just kind of thinks he knows the answer. He's on the left side of the chart, with very high confidence and very low experience, which is sometimes called Mount Stupid. And GLaDOS is kind of in the middle, where she knows enough to not confidently give a yes or no answer. There's a progression from more confidence to less confidence that happens a lot in video games as you understand more about how the game works, which is kind of a problem for game designers potentially. That dip in confidence is a pretty big exit point in games. If too many mechanics are revealed at once, sometimes people will get overwhelmed and stop playing. Most tutorials try to put people on the left side of the chart, where they maybe feel like they understand the game better than they actually do. Ideally, for a more complicated game, they learn at a pace where they never realize how much they haven't learned about it. Nintendo is really good at making games that bridge that gap in confidence. Like if you look at Smash Brothers, people who don't know anything about the game can have fun, and people who know the game inside out can have fun. People who just bought the game have very low knowledge but high confidence. If they had to learn how to do a complicated mid-air combo or attack canceling, they probably wouldn't enjoy it. But they don't need to learn that. They can just mash the attack button and still have a good time. But people who play in tournaments enjoy the game because they do understand things like that. The dip in the middle of the chart a lot of the time is where people know enough to be overwhelmed, but they aren't actually very good at the game. To avoid that valley of despair, as it's known, Smash Bros. Does its training modes in a way that lets people gain as much knowledge about the game as they want. And it does it in a way where they'll ideally only learn about new skills as they gain confidence in the game. Instead of having every tutorial at the start of the game, they're all optional. They're not even the default selection when you start the game for the first time, they're off to the side. The default selection is to just jump in. The tutorials and training mode are in a separate section from the main game, which stops you from being overwhelmed by too much information. The confidence gap usually happens when people learn more than they want to know or more than they're ready for. So with the more in-depth training modes and tutorials on the side, players can increase their knowledge when they want to, which most people will do when they feel confident with the rest of the game. Even after you start a training mode, there's even more information, like your move list and combos, that you can only see when you pause and decide to scroll through it. It doesn't shove anything in your face, so it keeps people's confidence level high even as they're learning more. That kind of thing will slowly take people from low experience to high experience without going through the valley of despair. If you liked this video, don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching this episode of Breakdown.